Hi everyone, this is the Shop Stool Podcast, episode 11 of season 3. As always, I'm going to start by introducing my two co-hosts. Joey, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm very good tonight. Thanks, Robin.
That's good. And Brian, how are you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. You?
Good. Yeah, I'm not too bad. And my name's Robin. Welcome to the show, everyone. So we don't have a guest tonight. So we're going to be able to talk about what we are doing, which is, it feels like
in a while, man.
Yeah.
It's been ages since we've talked about things that are going on. And we're going to start with a little bit of a bit of a development, a bit of business around the show. We recently had someone contact us and they wanted to donate some money to us. It's one of our listeners contacted us out of the blue and asked if he could donate some money. Really nice gesture, and it was an amazing thing to do. And in the process of that, we kind of got to thinking that this might be something that we will make available publicly. So the idea being that if there's anyone who wants to donate to the show, they can, and in all of that money that comes into the show will essentially go back into the show. So whether that's buying gear, maybe getting some really high-profile guests on that are going to charge us one day.
Yeah, sure.
Anything like that. All the money is going to go back into the show.
A box of beers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's buy beer.
So we can get through the show. So we're gonna make this link public. So it's a PayPal link. It's one of those ones where you can go in and add some credit card details and donate like that. What I'm going to do is put that link onto my website where we host the show. So if you go to RobinLewisMakes.com, there'll be a link to the Shop Stool Podcast, and somewhere in there will be that donation link. So we wanted
you probably stick it in the notes section in the podcast as well, can you?
Yeah, that's probably, yeah. So it'll go in there as well, yeah. So we've thought about this for a good couple of weeks, and we've just decided to make it public. So, if there's anyone out there who wants to donate, it's there. And as I say, we can put some money back into the show and improve it as we go.
The other thing, Robin, like we'd spoken back and forth on whether to do Patreon and stuff, because obviously a lot of podcasts do Patreon, and I think the three of us were in agreement that we didn't really like the model of it in terms of people signing up, forgetting they've signed up, and the money keeps coming out of their account. So the way you've set it up with PayPal, if somebody literally wants to give us $5 to buy us a coffee or a beer, they can do it, and it can just be a one-off donation just to say thanks for putting the effort into the show. So no long-term commitments, and there will never be anything behind a paywall in this show because we don't have the time to put up a paywall.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
the paywall costs too much.
So it is. The idea is that it's a once-off thing, so there is no locking you into it.
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, so if you go to RobinLewisMakes.com, that link will be there. All right. Anything else you guys want to add to that, or have we covered it off?
It's just no obligation. It's like if someone feels the need to throw money into the abyss, then I will catch it.
When did we become the abyss? I'd like to say there is some value to the show.
Okay, sure. I take that back.
Joey can be the abyss.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Talking about throwing money around, Joey, has there been any developments on your house? Is it good news?
Oh my god. Well, okay, yeah. So the house sold. So what did I say last time? We had a place that we had put an offer on, but we lost it because our place hadn't sold. So we have now got our house under contract. It seems that everyone has conditions these days. There's all sorts of conditions about house sales, and so typically it's everyone's waiting to sell the house that they're trying to sell to get the money to buy the house that you're trying to sell. So this kind of might land into the whole situation with lockdown, because Auckland is, or all of New Zealand is locked down at the moment, which is just outrageous. But
welcome to lockdown, Joey.
Jeez, it's not my first rodeo, but jeez, it's not as fun as the first time.
I did listen. Doing it again.
I did listen to Jacinda's press conference yesterday when the lockdown extension was announced, and a journalist asked her, "Are you worried that New Zealanders might be facing lockdown fatigue?" And I'm like, day 203.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Yeah.
So we obviously can't go out and about looking for houses, but we actually bought a house without seeing it.
Ooh.
So we saw pictures and we talked a pretty good amount of time to the agent.
Is it in the same area to the one that you previously had the offer on?
It's a little further north than we had been looking at, but it's actually exactly what we want. It's like a 2-hectare block with a pond and trees and a couple of sheds already on there. Not big enough for me, but there's buildings which we will renovate, and there's a house, and so we are just waiting until we can actually get there. Lawyers are doing lawyery things, but we still obviously need to sell our house, which is under contract, but those people can't buy it until they sell their house, and everyone's waiting on builders' reports to finish off their due diligence for their house sales, and so everything's just at a standstill because we can't go anywhere and do anything. So
there is literally nothing in your level of lockdown. Like, you cannot leave the house unless you go to the supermarket.
Yeah, go to the supermarket, and
Healthcare,
that's about it. You can exercise. We take the kids out around the block.
Yeah.
So kind of luckily for me, I just like the week before moved into the small house behind my workshop.
Perfect.
So we've got 65 square meter little place. It's a bit cramped with 4 of us, but it does the job, so I can just carry on working.
Right.
However, the week of lockdown, I planned like every day we were doing an install that week, and so it's just like I'm just full to the rafters. It's just so I've got nowhere to do anything. Like, I'm actually essentially just blocked in with cabinetry. So it's a bit of a pain in the butt. So that also meant I hadn't been paid for 2 weeks before as well, and like it was my big pay week because I was going to install 3 or 4 jobs in the week, and then anyway, so that all went out the window. But so I've started making something just for me because I said, stuff it. I'm just going to have some fun for the first week, which has turned into 2 weeks. And
how much longer is it? Do they know?
Well, it's at least till next Tuesday, which is another week. But looking at the case numbers, certainly in Auckland, they're going to tell us it's probably 3 or 4 weeks, I imagine.
Where are you guys with your vaccinations?
Yeah, it's pretty slow, although my wife just got hers today. Because she was like, for some reason, her doctors somehow let her get it in earlier than she should have. And she just got an email to say, hey, you're eligible. And so she looked at the thing and she said, there's a slot available today. I'll just go do it. So she went and did that. And I'm officially eligible, I think, from tomorrow. And I've no clue how to go about doing it. But I suppose I should look into that. People are getting vaccinated. It seems like at this stage it's a pretty good rate, but just like you guys, well, I think in Australia you guys have got some kind of target 80 or 90%, and they're not saying that here. They're just saying they want everyone to be vaccinated, and so who knows what that means for the future. I've got no clue. I don't really want this to turn into a COVID strategy podcast. But
I think Shop Stool epidemiologist corner.
I think we are October, if I'm not mistaken. It's somewhere around October that we're supposed to have like a majority. It's so funny. I talked to my friends back in South Africa, and this whole pandemic there's been two ways of going about it. On the one hand, you've got the people who failed miserably in the beginning, or the countries that failed miserably in the beginning. They just couldn't get it together. Their numbers just went through the roof. Those are the countries that are suddenly all vaccinated. And then you've got Australia, who's gone the other way. We were so good, and now the wheels are falling off. It's amazing. No one's getting vaccinated.
There's obviously a comment on a certain prime minister in there somewhere, but
yes.
Yeah. I've got mine tomorrow, so excited about that. Yep.
So,
Yeah.
other than pandemics, what's everyone working on? What were you actually making, Joe?
Yeah, so I've been interested. So the other day, just before lockdown, a guy came in, as happens like once a month. I'm moving house, and I found this Remu under the house. How much will you give me for it? And I was like, yeah, God, yeah, all right. And so he had a piece with him, and it was quarter sawn, and it was clean. And I was like, oh, actually, it's quite nice. Is it all like this? He said, yes. Turns out it's not all like that. Anyway, I gave him some money for it. I paid him I ended up paying a market rate, which I shouldn't have. So anyway, I spent $500 on the stack of Remu, which is reasonable. And so I
just
was like,
just remind me again. Remu is the one that you can't buy anywhere because it's so
not really. You can
restricted.
actually. For some reason, my supplier just told me maybe a month ago that they had now like just stocked up on Remu. There'd obviously been some trees being felled somewhere in the South Island, and they now have a warehouse full of it. So it is available for probably the next year, I suppose. I'll be able to get some.
Yeah.
So I started thinking, what am I going to do with this Remu? And I've been thinking about. So I had two inspirations. The first inspiration was, in movies you always see in a safety deposit box, and how it's like a drawer that slides out, but it's got a lid on it. And the lid doesn't go all the way. For some reason, it's hinged in the middle, or 2/3 back or something. So I like that. I don't know why. It's just something interesting about that kind of concept. And I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then I started thinking about like an exoskeleton. And I thought, so I've developed this like exoskeleton piece. And I started out with the intention of it being like a showpiece, or even possibly I might enter it into a competition type, whatever you call them, furniture making doodads. I still might. So I'm thinking. Essentially I've just got a whole lot of sticks that form like the shape of a piece, but it's all like a wire frame, and everything's going to be exposed.
So is this the box itself, or the cabinet the box is going to sit in?
Essentially, I'm making like a set of drawers sitting on a cabinet, but everything is like what you see is like a wire frame, and so there's no panels. Everything's like the outline of the thing. And so what I wanted to incorporate is that the drawers, you would see that kind of drawer sitting inside a frame, so you'd actually see all of the drawer, like you see it's like working parts and how it's sitting there, and you can view it from both sides. You could actually take the drawer out and put it in the other side, so you can use it both. So it's almost like a room divider, or like it's got no front.
Has that been done before?
Well, the idea of a cabinet with no front has been done before. I know.
With no sides.
Anton Gerner did something in the same vein, where he had drawers, I think, that were accessible from both sides. And I think in his one you could actually see some of the drawer sides. I can't remember exactly. But
it seems like such a cool idea that I can't imagine. I've never thought of it. It's never come to mind. But now that you're saying it, I'm just thinking it's an amazing idea. Surely it's been done.
I don't know. It's a pain in the ass, because I was like, it would be really easy just to make lots of little sticks and join them together. It's a pain in the butt. So I wanted also to get away from a three-way miter, because that's the obvious thing. When you draw like a cube that's just made out of like the frame of a cube, like what do you do in the corners? I was like, God, I really don't want to have to do a proper three-way miter, because it's going to take me weeks to do it.
How many drawers are you thinking?
I was going to have 3 drawers, only because that's how many I copy and pasted when I drew it, and then that ended up being the size of it. So I was like, well, that's what it's going to look like. And so, yeah, I've got the frame done and trying to finish it. Of course, I've got no finish, so I've like poured all the dregs of stuff I've had and poured them into like one can, and trying to see if it is going to go off.
The tentacle just crept out of it because something's grown in there.
Yeah. I found some old polyurethane from a year ago and try and board it back to life, and hopefully that'll do the trick. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting job. So I've just started kind of thinking about how I'm going to construct the drawers, and that'll be something I'll get onto in the next few days. But yeah, it's going to be... So anyway, I'm using it mostly Rimu. I wanted it to be all out of Rimu, and then I don't have enough of it. So I had to choose some other timber, so I need to do something contrasting, I figured, and I found some walnut, and I was going to ebonize it, and then when I actually made the pieces that were going to be walnut, I think they're going to be dark enough, because I really don't like the idea of putting all the effort I've done into the joinery and then ebonizing it and not seeing any part of that joinery. It's just hidden, even though it might look more kind of stunning, I suppose, to the eye. I'd rather it be a little bit more technical if someone were to view it, they could actually see what's going on with the joinery if it's at least just clear coated. So yeah, I'm a little annoyed because I always think about Bryan talking about using native timbers, and I was like, right, I'm going to do something out of native timber, and then I had to use bloody walnut because that's all I had to make up the difference. Anyway, that's mostly Rimu.
Bryan, what have you been working on?
I managed to get a big install done just before lockdown. And then I was working on my tambour cabinet.
Oh, yes. There were some pictures
pretty well
on Instagram, yeah.
So that's come on pretty fast. Blackwood's really, really nice. Like, I think I said before, I'd only really worked with small pieces. I'd made a couple of serving boards out of it, but I'd never done a big furniture piece. And it's a lot easier to work than spotted gum or black butt or something. Like it feels, not that I've ever really used walnut, but it feels like the Australian equivalent to walnut. It's a bit more sort of buttery, but it's got quite a high resiny, waxy feel. So sanding it, you got to have really sharp blades on your thicknesser, otherwise it just burns. It sort of leaves a residue on it. So it still cuts really beautifully, but it'll leave like a residue on it. But yeah, that's come on pretty well.
How's the all the different tones? Because when we talked about it last, you said it's quite heavily toned.
Yeah, there's a lot of tone variation in Blackwood. I've picked it. It's pretty consistent to what I've got. And the ones where there's the biggest contrast will either be at the back on the base or the vertical fins, which are inside the cabinet. So, yeah, you're not going to see too much contrast in it. And then for the doors, I'm waiting for my thick ash veneer plywood to arrive, which was being custom pressed, and God knows how long it's going to be before that arrives. I actually bought, I've been meaning to buy one for about 5 years. I bought a vacuum press.
Oh yeah, cool.
One of the hand pump ones, or
no, the electric ones.
Electric baggy deal.
Yeah, so sort of I put it out to the furniture maker group in Melbourne. Anybody had advice on where to buy one, because the markup on them in Australia is crazy.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I bought them from Veneer Supplies Online, I think they're called. American.
Yep.
And
German woodworker.
Even with $430 of shipping and $300 of GST and duty, it worked out cheaper to get it from the States.
That's outrageous. Yeah, his stuff is really good, but I find I couldn't afford the outlay to buy those, like his bags and stuff. Like, I could find a vacuum press here, a vacuum pump, and I could get hoses, but I had to get some fittings, and I wanted to get the bags from him. Yeah. But geez, the shipping on the bags, I couldn't. It was like, ugh.
Yeah, I think it was because I was the extra to get the. I think to just send the pump, it was like $360.
Yeah.
And then to get the bags, and I got some plastic mesh sent as well, and that worked out at another $70. So I think if you're going to do it in one big hit, it makes sense, because the full sheet, like to do a 2400 by 1200 bag, to buy that in Australia, I think was about 1,500 Aussie dollars.
Yeah, they are expensive.
And that's the best. That's the 30 mil polyurethane.
Yeah. I don't know what it's actually.
A clear one.
Yeah.
Well, I say, oh wow, that's so expensive. I don't actually know the technology and the R&D that goes into it. So maybe it's actually not that expensive, but it just feels like $1,500 for a
small vacuum.
Plastic bag.
It's a bag and a vacuum.
But in saying that, I'm really excited for it to come, because I've started using veneers in a lot more, because I'm doing a bit more cabinetry than I've done before, like wall hung cabinets and things, which obviously require veneered plywood backs and things, and for doing memory boxes. And I'm constantly trying to make up these presses using coils, and I'm worried about getting the clamping pressure right. And so I'm really looking forward to that arriving.
I think what I'm going to do, because if mine was easier to use, I would use it way more often. And I say easier to use, it's just a pain in the butt getting the bags out and having it, and then it takes over the bench for the day. I think I will make room in the workshop and make a vacuum table, which may be something. Do you know about them? You know how they work?
Yeah, I've seen it with the...
I think that would be the way to go. Like, you essentially have like a full sheet, 2.4 by 1200 sheet, and have a plastic lid that comes down and it seals on, and then you can just lay out your panels on that sheet. And because feeding, especially large pieces, feeding them into those bags without the veneer sliding and slipping with the wet glue,
pretty tricky.
It's a pain in the butt if you're by yourself as well. And there's ways around it, but I think just a simple hinged lid, put this thing on the panel, on the table, and shut the lid, hit go on the pump. I think that's the way to go. And I think if I set something like that up in the new workshop, I will be much more likely to do a lot more veneer work.
I ended up buying I bought a full sheet bag, and I bought a small bag as well, like a 600-400 bag or something, just for doing. Because I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, if it's a massive bag and I'm just doing something small, I'll end up just reverting to the coals and panels and things rather than manoeuvring it into the middle of the bag. But what else was I going to say?
What, in terms of the pump and the hand pump, or the electric pump and the hand pump, is there a big difference? Because I see a lot of guys using the hand pump.
I've never seen that.
I think the hand pump only works to a certain size of bag.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be it.
And as well, if there's any leaks or tears in the bag, the hand pump automatically fails. Whereas the pump will cycle on and off.
Right. So that pump will keep the vacuum going.
So the idea,
gotcha. Okay.
You can get them. You can rig them up. And you probably bought one with his valve kit and stuff, so you can have it so it will trigger as soon as it falls below a certain vacuum that triggers it. My one is just designed to actually, it's better if they trigger on and off, but vacuum pumps are designed just to be on.
Yeah,
they just stay on.
It's not like a compressor pump. It's not as aggressive or loud or anything, so you can just leave it in the background.
Okay.
It's essentially dead quiet. The only thing I find with mine, because it stays on the whole time, is it gets quite hot, and so I just put a fan on it to keep it cool. But that's what I was going to say, because I didn't buy the expensive bags. I ended up buying a roll of mattress protector bags, from a manufacturer, and I got a roll of 10 king size bags for $200.
There's a good cost saving tip.
But it's not as thick, and I do find that if you have sharp edges on veneers and stuff, the vacuum can just rip it through. It just pulls the plastic through it. But we get probably 2 or 3 good pulls out of one bag. And so far that's been economical enough, but it's not an end solution.
I think it'll take a while to get used to. I was talking to Damien Wright during the week, and he was explaining his technique to me and giving me some pointers on how to avoid tearing through the bags. So he's definitely more of an expert than I am. But and with the workbench, I made a workbench in the last few weeks as well. I think I've spoken on this show before about how I'm not really one for a beautiful presentation workbench. My woodworking benches are pretty, not chunky, but they're not beautiful.
Just enough.
And I've always found that the big workbench that I've got on wheels, that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I found that I actually use that as a workbench nearly as often as I use my woodworking benches.
Yeah.
So I made a version of that on casters. It's at the right height. Like although I'm like 5'11", I like quite a tall workbench.
I'm exactly the same.
Yeah.
All the measurements or the generally followed measurements. I'm going to have back pain following that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm exactly the same. If it makes me tilt my back, I would much rather be standing straight at the bench. If you're using it to do dominoes or something like that, I want to be standing straight and have it at elbow height rather than below that. So anyway, I've made it 20. It's nearly a full sheet. I just sort of shrunk it slightly. It's like 2200 by 1200.
Yeah.
And butchered an old desk that I had down to steal the drawers off it, and now the drawers just sort of slide in. Dog holes everywhere. Hold down clamps.
Dog holes everywhere. I've just got this picture of just random, just drilling in holes.
No,
make them random.
Really good. So done with the shaper as well, and they've turned out really well. It took a bit longer, obviously, than doing it on CNC, but so that'll be perfect for veneering, and I'm actually considering making another one and sort of reactivating a corner of my workshop that I don't really use that often. So yeah.
With what you've been saying about from a cabinetry perspective, going to more substrates that are stable, you're moving away from traditional woodworking, and Joey.
No, it would still. It's just in the areas where I need a super stable panel, and I want to control the movement of the panel. So if you take, for example, that tambour door unit, there's two backs to it. So there's an inset back, which just is a floating panel and non-structural, and that's just a typical veneered panel. Whereas the panel that mounts, that has the French cleat recessed into the back of it, that's perpendicular to the fins. So if I made that out of solid timber, it's most likely, depending on the time of year, but it's most likely going to contract a little bit. And then the fins that are going perpendicular to it, which are parallel, grain direction to the long direction, you get that clash. So I'm ending up having to make that back panel in veneered, like shop sawn veneers, and then fake a bit of end grain veneer onto it as well to try to get it to look like real timber.
Are you going to see that back panel?
You're going to see the end of it, yeah.
The end of it?
Yeah, so I'm going to just lop off an offcut of the end grain and epoxy it on.
Right.
And then do the veneer over the top of that.
Do you even need to veneer it? Do you need to veneer the face? Just curious. If there's a fake back on the piece.
Oh, you
inside.
see it on. Yeah, you see it on. So there's two tambour cabinets that I'm doing. One, you don't see the end of the back panel. On the other one, it extends, and you will see it. So yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. So it's again just doing the thing that, I don't know, 8 years ago when I started woodworking, I would have been like, it'll be all right. I'll just make it out of solid timber. And now I'm like, if I'm going to do things properly, I need to make it quicker. So using a vacuum press as opposed to coils and every single clamp in my workshop makes sense.
Do you want to talk about the shaper a little bit? Because I'm curious.
Yeah.
I saw on your Instagram when you had the picture of where you were asked so far with the tambour unit.
Yep.
And presumably you used the shaper to cut the grooves. What do you call them? Yeah, grooves for the door to slide in, and some of the other joinery on it.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you think, like, because I don't know what it costs. I don't know what the shaper costs, and obviously I feel like it must be slower. Well, I don't know what it's slower than, but if you were to have a CNC,
yep,
it would have to be a full-size CNC to take on that job, I think.
Yep.
Otherwise, I don't like the idea of what they call tiling, where you have like maybe a 1.2 by 1.2 CNC, and you've got to like stick something out of it. Yeah. And then how the hell, like, there's so much, it's so dicey to try and get that piece moved and get it all aligned. It seems awful. Yeah. So obviously the outlay for a full-size CNC is fairly large, even on the lower scale ones. But when it's working, they're pretty quick. once you've got the program set up.
Yep. So the reason, the cost difference is obviously one thing. Like I don't really have 30 grand to sink into.
Yeah.
Or even, I don't know what you can get a kit for now.
You could probably get a kit for 10.
Maybe 10, okay. So when I bought the Shaper, landed in Australia, it cost me about, from memory, about 3 grand.
Right. And you got a very early version, right?
Yeah, it's exactly the same as the model that they still make. So none of the components have changed. They just upgrade the firmware on it all the time. So when I turn it on to use it in the workshop, it'll detect the firmware. So despite the fact that mine's 3 years old or whatever, it's exactly the same as the one that's coming out of their manufacturer line today. So the real benefit that I found with it, so originally I was just going to do the tambour slot. Mm-hmm. The thinking being that because I'm obviously still waiting for the plywood to arrive, I don't have the final thickness of the tongue that I'm going to cut on the tambour doors. Mm-hmm. So I can start working. So I drop the file on. You reference, you get an XY 0 point on it. You drop the CAD file on. And once your tape is there, that's you. So I can leave it taped, do all the cutouts. So I did the cutouts for the domino, the back panel, and the tambours. And then, set it aside, wait for the plywood to arrive, and then come back and just creep up to get the perfect fit on it. So cut the tongues and then go back and sort of increase it by 0.1 of a mil or whatever.
To me, that sounds more beneficial actually than a CNC in that if you were to do that process and take it off the CNC and then do some other work and then try and get it back on there. Yeah. Like even if it's 2 weeks later and you've had to use the CNC for something else, it's almost impossible to reference it back where it was.
Jem from Like Butter was actually asking me when he saw my post whether that was possible. And then I said to him, as long as you leave the tape on. And then the more I thought about it, actually when you take the tape off, you can always re-reference your XY touch off. So if you've got a 90-degree corner, so the back corner of the cabinet where I use my insertion point,
constant,
I can put tape down again and drop the file again, and it'll end up in the same spot.
Right.
So it's pretty remarkable, and I know I go on and on about it, but I just find that I have so much use for that.
My only concern about leaving the tape on, because I would be in that same position, like at the moment I would be like, I'm stuck for a couple of weeks, I'll just leave the stuff in the corner, and when I take the tape off in 3 weeks I'm going to have these big stripes over my board where the timbers change colour.
So the residue on the tape, I found that it's probably about 2 months before it starts to really discolour the timber.
I was actually thinking it would be the sun. The timber would change that is exposed, it would darken up or something around.
I tend to leave it wrapped in a blanket.
Yeah, right, okay.
Just to make sure.
Nice and cozy and warm over winter.
Nice and cozy and warm,
Gotta treat it right.
But that's... And then... What other I had some fun issues with Festool in the past few weeks as well, which have been good.
What's that?
Yeah, great.
So they're really good with their customer care.
Yeah.
So I had an old Festool MIDI vac that I bought like 7-8 years ago, and it's been brilliant. Like it's a little compact one, no footprint, absolutely brilliant. And then the motor and turbine burnt out in it.
Oh, great.
So I came back to my desk and saw smoke coming from the vac. And I opened it up and I'm like, oh shit. And anyway, I got a quote to repair, or just to replace, this was just to supply me with the motor, $467.
And what, a new vac is what?
Well, 600? The new version is 900.
Yeah, God.
That's not too bad.
$467.
Oh, I guess you still got to install it as
well.
And
I'd literally just bought I'd had my eyes on one of the anti-static hoses for years.
Okay.
And I'm like, I'm just going to get one because I need it now. I find that the hoses of a lot of vacs just damage edges.
Yeah.
So the anti-static one, not only being anti-static, but it has smooth edges and it doesn't kink so much. So I bought one of those to fit that vac. The fitting is unique to that age of vacuum.
Oh my God.
And then 2 weeks later, my motor burns out, and I'm like, $460. And
Now you've got to.
$300 hose. I'm screwed. I'm locked in. So anyway, I ended up going on eBay.
You can buy several Ryobi vacs for that.
I know, but I'm locked. Like I'm stupidly. It's that whole Apple thing. I'm locked in. All the adapters for my router, for my sander, everything is. It's unfortunately Festool.
Yeah.
So anyway, bought a motor that is exactly the same motor.
Oh yeah.
From the same factory. From a reseller in Lithuania for $130 delivered to Australia, and it took me 10 minutes to fix it today.
Really?
So $130. It's got exactly the same factory stamp on it. It's the
How
same.
did you find
But
it?
it's not used in that.
eBay.
But it's not used in that application.
It is. Well, it's Dommel is the brand of motor, and they're used in like steel and lots of different power tools and vacs and things.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if that motor is not a Festool motor, it's just a universal motor.
Festool don't make the motors now. They buy. It's like the way Apple buys Samsung parts.
Yeah.
Or it's like buying a 125cc motor. That motor is used in so many different things.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that was fun.
I just had my Capex blow up. My miter saw just blew up the first day of lockdown, so that's great.
You're kidding.
No. So I thought it was the brushes, because sparks were flying out, and I thought that's probably not great. And then it didn't want to cut a piece of wood. It sounded like a bloody, I don't know, broken engine.
Well, Brian knows a guy.
I've got my contact in Lithuania.
Took it apart. The brushes were only kind of half used. So we're thinking that it is, I forget what the word is now, like the main shaft in the electric motor's got a short in it. Whatever they call it.
Starts with a C. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty doubtful that for an engine that size, or motor that size, they're going to sell that part. It's going to be, like you, Brian, it's going to be a whole motor or a whole top half of that saw probably.
Yeah.
And it's, it's what, a $2,500 bloody saw, so...
Still warranted or not?
No, it's done some work. It's probably 7 years old.
Yeah.
Is it quite accurate?
No, I don't like them actually.
I'm just thinking with your hammer, what do you use your drop saw for? Why don't you just get something
I use it quite
cheap?
often for docking things to length. And I need it, like there's times when it's just chop stuff in half saw, and there's times where it has to be exactly right because I need this crazy compound angle, which I could do all of those with the sliding table saw. But for small parts, like if you're doing Belection molding on panel doors and stuff, you just want a drop saw. You just want to be able to swing it from one side to the other and tilt it. That's I think the only problem with my hammer saw is it doesn't tilt both ways. If it tilted both ways, I could probably just about get rid of having a drop saw.
Do any table saws tilt both ways?
Yeah, they're expensive. I know. Actually, I was just watching. Is it Nathan Day? He just got the new Felder Kappa 540 or something like that, and it is like
cheap.
It's fully electric, fully CNC'd, and there's a 550mm blade on it. And
holy moly!
He can cut 200mm deep, and it's got double tilting, everything.
Yeah.
So,
not a table saw guy yet. Why does that make a difference? Tilting both ways.
You can't, if you're doing, it makes it very hard sometimes to do, well, certainly compound cuts. I'm trying to think of a specific application where,
because my miter saw can rotate in two directions, but one of those only moves in one direction. So you can, with the handle, you can swivel
45 both ways.
But then the blade,
the tilt only goes one way.
Yeah. So surely the same logic applies into a table saw.
Well, let's see. If you were doing, if you're trying to put scotia, cut like what the Americans call crown molding, and your drop saw only tilts one way, you can't really complete the cut. You have to be able to tilt it both ways because you can't just turn your piece of timber over. You have to cut
flat.
You have to cut your molding upside down and back to front when you're doing scotias, and so you have to be able to tilt both ways. With a sliding table saw, if you're using the table saw sled, which you most likely would be, the blade's only going to tilt up, tilt one way relative to that table saw, to the sled,
which can generally go both ways.
Well, the sled can go backwards and forwards, but if the blade's only tilting to the right, it's relative to how the fence is set up on your slider. You can't just turn your piece around and use the same tilt. You'd have to turn your piece around and turn it upside down, and that causes a whole lot of problems because you're not referencing the same edge of the fence anymore.
Yeah, okay.
And if it's a funny shaped piece of wood, it's just a pain in the butt. If you can just tilt the saw back over the other way and keep it exactly where it is on the fence, you just save yourself a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, fair enough.
But there are older versions that do that. It has been around for quite a while, but they're always a step up in price.
And then the follow-up bit to my vacuum story was, after it burnt out, I was looking for advice on Instagram, so I posted it, and loads of people helped out with advice, like where I could look for parts. And a Melbourne-based boat builder, Nick Atkins, said, "Do you want to borrow my vac until yours is fixed?" Because he's obviously shut down.
I saw that post.
And he just came and dropped a Festool vac round. I'm like,
awesome.
An absolute legend. And 2 days later, I was routing some plywood.
Oh no.
And I left the workshop to go to the bathroom, and as I was going out the door and closing the door behind me, I smelt burning plastic.
Oh, God.
I'm like, what the hell is that? And there was smoke coming from the router, and I thought, well, I've burned the motor out in the router. And then I looked down the hose, and the smoke was coming from the hose. And I opened up the vacuum and got greeted by flames.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Yeah. So that was awesome.
Was it the dust had caught fire or the engine?
I don't know whether it had hit a bit of metal or something, or a staple, or something had sparked.
But the vacuum's okay though, right?
It melted a couple of parts in it. So again, Festool were great, and I ended up having to order the parts from the UK. So yeah, this could be the Festool bashing episode, but I just felt so bad. Like, this really kind guy who doesn't know me, he just comes around, lends me a vacuum, and 2 days later I'm sending him photos going,
this is probably the last time you're going to lend me a vacuum.
Yeah. So thanks, big shout out to Nick, and I think we've got to get him on the show. It'd be pretty cool to talk to a boat builder.
Yeah, absolutely. What type of boats does he do?
Everything. Kayaks, rowboats, bigger restoration projects. His grandfather was a boat builder, and he sort of carried it on, and he's got an amazing workshop. I've only seen photos of it, but amazing workshop in the Docklands in Melbourne. So it was obviously in previously quite an industrial part of the city, which is now being swallowed by apartment buildings, and he's still got this little, well, not little shed, big massive shed right at the end in the middle of the city. So we definitely have to get him on and chat boats.
There's something about boat builders. They always seem to have such an intimate understanding of wood, in particular wood movements, far more than us furniture makers will know. They just seem to, and I don't know if it's because of the way that they build the boats, and they need to have that knowledge, but a boat builder knows what he can look at a piece of timber and say, this board is going to expand 500,000 just by they've got that level of understanding. So we'll put him to the test.
I wonder if it's just because they assume that everything's going to get soaking wet and everything's going to expand at some point. So just assume everything's going to be 10% bigger than it is now. I don't know.
I really want to make a kayak. That's my so hopefully Nick can help me out with that. He runs classes as well, but obviously during COVID they're all locked down.
Talking about classes, can I just say, after our episode last week with old Ross, who had done a number of classes, it seems to be a common thread in the people that we interview. They go
I've
to
noticed.
the Burn Chandleys, the whoever, and get classes done. It's such a great idea. I've never done it, but just from hearing all these people, for all the new woodworkers out there listening, get in touch with your local. Well, actually, no, I lie. I've done 2 workshops with a local.
That's right. Yeah.
Wood studio just up the road. Get in touch, and that's a great way to learn. And clearly, all the guys that are making it go that route.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sort of even mid-level. Like, I'd love to do one of Burns chair making courses. It's not something that have any experience in, really, like traditional chair making. So, and I know, do you know Phil Morley in America?
Yeah,
Texas?
Yep.
Same thing. You get people traveling from all over the States to go to his classes, and mid-level, not beginner woodworkers. So I think it's something that really everyone can benefit from.
I agree, and I don't know that I've had a really staunch stance on it before, but I've always been resistant to the idea of taking someone else's class, and it's probably like some random ego thing, but I think recently, probably in the last year, I've really relaxed about, I've probably relaxed the whole. I don't have to be the best, and I can freely admit that I'm not the best woodworker in the world, and I don't have to prove anything, I suppose. And so I feel like that's opened my point of view up a bit more to being more acceptable to taking someone's class and just going with the flow and enjoying it, rather than taking it. I think in the past I'd always thought, if I take this class, I'm going to have to not show that I don't know what I'm doing or something. But like, that's the whole point of being at the class. Like, it's completely counterintuitive. And I think as an established woodworker, I had previously felt like I can't show stuff that I don't know. It's just some weird ego that I think just over time and maturity, you just kind of let that slide off and be like, I just want to have some fun with some people who are interested in the same stuff. And if I come out learning something, good. Otherwise, I just had fun.
The class that I took, and this is for me. This is why I would want to do the classes again. I mean, obviously, you're going to be learning a lot of things, and as someone who's still relatively inexperienced, I would be learning a lot. But in this class that I did, I'd always had a problem with the white wood glue that I was using. It was the Selleys Acrid here. Never fully, I think we've talked about this, never fully drying. And I've never found that information online. I've never been able to find out why that particular white wood glue would never go properly hard. And the guy taking the class said, you need to use yellow wood glue. That's got the resins or whatever it is, so your tight bond, that dries hard, like that's hard and brittle. So that's how you end up with a tabletop without these slight ridges over the glue lines where the glue's softened and moved. You need to use tight bond. And for me, the hundreds of dollars that I spent for that class to learn that, completely worth it.
I would like to push back against that, but I agree and disagree.
Tight Bond 3 is more on the white side, and it still works. So maybe it was just the Selleys Acrid here.
I don't know. See, Selleys Acrid here has like been my go-to forever, or something like that. Now I buy like whatever I can get in the same kind of category. I just buy like a 30 litre bucket of it, and it just lasts however long it lasts. When I first started, I started buying Type Bond 2 because that's what everyone else on YouTube had, and I thought I'd better buy that. And it's good glue, but it's really expensive for what it is. And you can't. If I could buy it by the drum, maybe I might get it. But so then I changed to like a Selleys Acrid here, white PVA. And sometimes I notice the ridges. I think I want to say that I got the what do we call it? Yeah, like a glue bump, something like that. I feel like I noticed it and when I was using Type Bond as well, but it does machine nicer. It definitely is a harder finish. It's a better color depending on what timber species you're using. The Type Bond has a more amber color, I think, which shows up less. Not that you should have big glue gap. But yeah, I think I've had cases where it's both ways, and I've had cases where the PVA just goes perfect. You never feel it. And then there's cases where you're like, okay, that's moved overnight. I can definitely feel something's happened there. But so yeah, I don't know if it's something that I'm doing differently or what something to do with the glue. It could be. Yeah.
I still think that woodworking in the tropics is like it's a dark art.
That's true.
I'm gently caressing the table leg next to me that I'm sitting at, and I can feel that bump. And this table that I'm on, it was the last table that I used the white PVA.
Yeah.
And admittedly, the joinery is not crash hot in some areas, but I can still feel those lumps that with Type Bond, it dries like quote unquote glass, and then you sand it, and that's it. You never see it again. Yeah.
You're going to talk us through your Bluetooth speaker?
Yeah. So actually,
we have time.
That was cool, man.
And let's go for it.
Cheers, and I want to do a bit of a plug on it as well, because I put out a YouTube video yesterday. Do you know how exciting it was to be able to put out a video? It was actually really. It brought back all those feelings of putting out videos, and because it's been months since I put out a video, and a lot of the comments, and this is just a bit of a shout out to the people who left comments. I had people commenting, "He's back, so good to see you," and because I'm still very, very low down on the chain, I didn't expect that. So it was such a nice surprise.
It's pretty nice
to see people saying that. Yeah, so that was a Bluetooth speaker. It's one of those projects that I've just always wanted to do. You can pick up these Bluetooth amps from China, $30. This, I don't know how much you guys know about hi-fi equipment, but this can put out 2 channels at 50 watts and a sub-channel at 100 watts RMS. That's a beefy amp. It's a beefy amp, and it's a tiny little thing. I mean, I don't know what the quality is like. I'm not driving particularly high quality speakers, but for that application, they're perfect. And it was just
how much did you say it cost, Rob?
The amp was $30.
$30.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
The speakers all up, they were, I think, $100. So it was just a really nice low cost project. The only thing that I really wanted to talk to you guys about, and this is something that we're going to have to see going forward. That front panel is sitting within 4 mitered corners, and there's going to be a little bit of expansion contraction. Now, my logic behind it is I've cut these gigantic holes out for the speakers to go through, so there's not actually going to be that much solid mass moving.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how that's going to go. I've also, I don't know if you picked up
the picture. It's made out of laminated.
Yeah,
like laminated timber.
It's mobile, so it's that store-bought stuff. So it's gonna be pretty stable at this point. It's also encased in an epoxy.
Yeah.
So.
And that's stopping anything from moving.
Well, or is it? Or is it going to crack it? You know, if that panel shrinks, who knows what?
If it wants to shrink,
then I'm going to be stuffed.
I don't know if the mobile would move much. Does it? I mean, I've never
again,
really...
the fact you're in Queensland and it's humid, something's pretty unlikely to shrink, right?
Yeah,
expanding, especially considering I've made this in the dry of winter. So in a couple months' time, I'm going to hear an explosion in the kitchen as the thing expands and just destroys itself.
I don't think it's big enough to make that much movement. I mean, the panel is maybe, even if it was solid, and you're looking at maybe, 200 mil?
Yeah, 200 mil, so you do your calcs on
it. The movement on that is going to be like half a mil or something?
Yeah.
Total movement?
It's just because it's 25 mil thick, so it is slightly thicker than what I'm used to. But I'm sure it'll be fine. It goes back to what you were saying earlier, Brian, about sort of throwing caution to the wind, and you'll probably be all right most of the time. But yeah, other than that, it was a really cool project, and I've had some good comments about it. This might be something that I'll look into perfecting and selling. I've had a couple of people who are interested in them. Going into price with the people, it's really hard to compete.
Yeah, you can't compete. You've just got to say it's going to be more expensive.
Yeah, you can pick the drivers, you can pick the color of the LED, all of those, so you can get involved in that. But really, I can't beat any commercial stuff.
I think it was a really nice video. I don't know why it really appealed to me particularly. I'm not sure if you thought about doing anything differently, because I can't pick out what it was, but I felt like it flowed really well, and I just kind of kept watching it, which was cool.
I'm so happy you said that.
Good.
because I went in with a very different mindset to what I normally do. No clip could be longer than 3 seconds. That was the rule.
Yeah. Okay.
So the clips were either 1, 2, or 3 seconds. There were a couple of areas where they were a bit longer, but it was only because it was to incorporate a particular moment that I wanted.
Yeah.
But so the idea was to have that quick change.
So lots of shooting.
Yeah, but you bring it down. You really bring all that footage down, and it keeps it moving. And that's I think that could be what you're talking about. The other thing, and I was very nervous about this, was bringing back music, because people don't want music. The guys like Neil Pask, they've all stopped doing music because people tend to get pretty bashed if you bring in music, because that's your personal music and you don't want to listen to it.
Yeah.
But if you've just said that you didn't notice it, I've used it right.
Yeah, exactly.
I've used it to drive a tone, not a preference in my music style.
To be honest, if there's going to be a video where you add music, it's going to be on top of a speaker build. Like, it makes complete sense to have something in it. It just makes logic, even if you never do it again. Like that makes sense for that one.
Yeah. And then the last thing I did was just try and bring, and this has been a constant thing, just try and bring more character in. So instead of, like, in one point I walked into the miter saw station and just about broke my hip bone, leaving that stuff in.
I think that was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm so stoked you said that. I'm so stoked you picked up on that.
Yeah, I'm filming this thing I'm making as well. And I've decided to go about it in a somewhat different way. Mainly, I'm just not filming a bunch of stuff, because I've done an intro. I usually film an intro before I start a video, and then I might use some of that, or I'll at least use it as a reference for when I need to when I finish the piece, and I can go back to see what I was thinking when I started the piece, and then kind of maybe I'll use it, maybe I'll just take an idea from that intro and then film a new one. But I said in the original intro that I've filmed that, everyone knows what it looks like when you dress up a piece of wood, so you're not going to see any of that. I'm just going to film, for a change, the bits that maybe matter, and even some of the stuff I've filmed I'll probably just not even put in the video, because I feel like it's still a bit too like, everyone knows what this looks like.
Sanding, finishing,
gratuitous thickness of shots.
So it's just going to be like, now I've done this, and now I've done this, and maybe I'll talk about it, and I'm not sure if I'm going to do lots more talkies, because that means longer clips, and after hearing you say that, I really did flow better. But if you want to explain something, I feel like you've got to have some talkie clips which are longer than...
Oh, but that's just putting B-roll over it. So
yeah,
if you do
and I'm terrible at that, though. I just face and talking, which is probably shit.
But that's the progression. That's the progression of what people are expecting these days.
Yeah.
So there's a YouTuber, Mark Rober. I'm sure you guys have heard of him.
I wonder who that is.
I watched some of his videos, went into editing, finished that session, watched more of his videos to try and understand that flow. The
flow, yeah.
Because there's a lot of talking in his videos, but you never sit there and go, "Oh, this is boring."
It's all B-roll, eh?
Yeah.
And he makes the B-roll interesting, which is a good point. But anyway, luckily for me, this video I'm doing, I will take my sweet time and try and do a good job of it. And God, now I've said it. Now I've said I'm going to do a good job of it.
Well, for all that you've said the nice things, and I appreciate it. I 100% do. The video on my app says, Looking good. This video is performing as usual. So
I thought it looked like it had a bunch of views on it. I thought it looked like it was doing good.
A ton of views.
it's up to 1,700 now after what's 36 hours, which is it's pretty normal. And now it will taper off. This is where it's either going to take off if it doesn't,
come into land,
or it's just going to peter out, and then that was it. Right. We had fun. The show's over.
My only kind of tweak, because I thought the LED lights was awesome, but I think they needed to be rotated 90 degrees somehow and have them facing out through the epoxy.
Which would have made sense if I didn't make the little boxes for the mid-range speakers.
You got no room.
I didn't think about that. I made the boxes.
Yeah,
and
right.
Shit, where am I going to put the LED lights? Luckily, I could squeeze them down through that gap and put them on the side.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right.
Otherwise,
I needed to get like a bit of aluminium 90 degree.
Yeah, maybe.
Right angle. Screw that in.
Otherwise, I think maybe the gap could have been bigger and you would have had more of a glow, like it almost becomes like a night light or a mood light while you're listening to music.
Which, yes, at the end I mentioned that.
Another option.
I need that. What I also needed to do was, on that front panel, put a big chamfer on the inside. So when you're looking at the front, you still see the thin line, but there's more access for that light to come
absolutely.
through.
Yeah.
And this is all the stuff that I've worked out now. So if I did make another one, I'd do it properly.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
Very good.
Cool. All right. Well, I reckon we'll leave it there. So everyone listening, thanks very much. If you did enjoy the episode, please go ahead and give it a rating on iTunes. It really does help us out. The Shop Stool Podcast is available on most podcasting apps. Bryan and Joey, thanks again for hanging out, and we'll see you all next week.
Okay, see yous.
Cheers, guys.
Why did I say next week? We've never done that.